All right. So Lansing Adams, Acting Cabinet Secretary for the New Mexico Tourism Department. It's great to be here with you all today. This group, it's wild. It was a year ago I was here, and first of all, just want to start by saying, thank you for all you do. This department really is here to serve the industry, and obviously, the hoteliers are incredibly important to everything we do. And obviously Albuquerque, a huge driver of our tourism. So I wanted to, I got about 20 minutes here, so I wanted to speak through this as swiftly as I can, but we have a lot to cover. I want to go through some of the top line numbers that we've had with respect to our economic impact and visitation, our strategy moving into, that we've had, and then moving into the future years, and then to talk obviously about the legislature coming up and what we're going to be looking for. So to start, our economic impact numbers. So we had another record-breaking year in 2023. We do our economic data every year, so we will have this data for 2024 midway through 2025, so midway through this year. But we had $8.6 billion in direct visitor spending, which was a record, $11.6 billion total economic impact, and over 93,000 jobs sustained. And I think one thing we're incredibly proud of at the department is the fact that this industry does return dollars back to the tax base in 2023 to the tune of $810.7 million. So to get into a little bit more specifics as to where we're seeing these increases, so the spending up 3.8% from 2022, visitation up 1.2%, so it's not all inflation driven. We are seeing increases in visitation, and I'll speak to this a little bit more, but we're seeing increases in visitation from markets where folks are staying longer and spending more money. Additionally, with the international front, we are seeing international tick up to pre-pandemic levels. Hate saying that word. In New Mexico, and so I think this is a big opportunity, obviously, with the Route 66 Centennial coming up in 2026, to leverage some of that international travel into New Mexico. So looking at our trend, over the past 10 years, there's you could see the 2023 bar graph would be even higher. Apologize for that, but the point here is you're seeing growth. You're seeing consistent growth in both visitation and in spending, and I think that's something that we don't take for granted, and I think we work incredibly hard to drive that and to keep those numbers up. But you really are seeing to the tunes of hundreds of millions of dollars increases in visitor spending, and that's, I think, benefiting all New Mexicans. So how are we doing what we do at the department? So first off, just to level set, so our vision at the department is to be the primary destination for venturesome travelers. Very deliberate when we're talking about New Mexico True and what that means. Our market is a traveler that is looking for authenticity, looking for authentic cultural experiences, looking for adventure, and so that is our target. Our mission is to grow New Mexico's economy through tourism and through the work of the tourism industry. So with that, we have sort of two sort of codependent departments or divisions that work together to execute on that. We have our marketing. Obviously, a lot of folks know New Mexico True, very proud of it. So New Mexico True marketing, very heavy in broadcast, very heavy at airports. I don't know if you're at DFW or you're at LA or any of these folks, you'll see we have these pretty massive blitzes of advertising. So getting those quality brand impressions out there, also working with our co-op partners on co-branded materials. So then our development division, we're making a promise, so then we have to make sure that we are delivering on that promise by providing quality amenities, attractions, and then access to those amenities and attractions. So it's not just stopping at marketing. It's understanding how we market, we make a promise, we have to always invest and continue to find opportunities to better deliver on those promises. So this is just kind of the infographic that we've sort of used to define that. So obviously you can see drive demand, the marketing, that piece, having the 4-season marketing, having the co-op program, our earned media, and then on the delivering on experiences, think about investments in infrastructure, investments in business, making sure that our industry is in a position to succeed. So just going in a little bit deeper on this, within our drive demand, some of the programs that we focus on, national marketing this year, which we hadn't done in years, some international marketing, which we're really excited about, our cooperative marketing, where we work with specific communities like Visit Albuquerque, in terms of marketing their community, this region. Earned media, so those are the stories that we get with travel writers, New Mexico Magazine, and New Mexico True Certified. So to get into some of our marketing strategy here, essentially we've got our retention markets, which are heavy drive, but not so much high in spend. But they're very foundational to us. So when you think about the Texas drive markets, we think about Arizona, Colorado, and some of those markets that we are in. We are continuing to invest in those markets, especially through co-op. I think co-op has been a really impactful way to drive those travelers. But additionally, and this is due to the resources that we've been afforded, we have moved into these growth markets, which are the California markets, specifically LA and now San Francisco. Our research is showing that this is a traveler, again, that is staying longer and spending more money. So this year we're excited because in addition to those expansion markets domestically, we are also looking at some international marketing, looking at the Route 66 Centennial as an opportunity. When we were discussing this, Route 66 is going to be a big deal. There's a national push on behalf of the entire country to advertise the road trip experience of the Route 66. But really, the market's a little different, right? We can't just take Route 66 themed advertising, lift it, and just send it out to our typical markets. I think we have to think a little bit more strategically. And with the international appeal, we will be working with Brand USA, which is the tourism agency for the United States, and doing some other cooperative sort of activations in the German and the UK markets, which would be Munich and London, respectively. So we are going to be doing some advertising internationally. When I say spending more, staying longer, this just adds to that. We're talking international travelers spend a lot more time, obviously. I will say, though, too, some of the challenge there is this is a road trip sort of advertising effort on behalf of Brand USA. So I think the question is, how do we make New Mexico as much of a primary destination on that road trip as possible so that we can get as much of that benefit as possible? So just want to give some updates on cooperative marketing. So currently, $3.8 million, supporting 48 local governments. That's a high watermark. All of these numbers are very, they're sort of the highest levels that we've been at, but we're really seeing the impact there. You can see some of these ads, featuring Deming. But this is, when you look at sort of the funnel of advertising, New Mexico True, big on just sort of awareness of New Mexico, and then I think co-op has been very good at that sort of consideration to conversion phase where you're talking about, all right, I know about New Mexico, but where do I want to go, and then how do I take action and make a trip wherever I'm planning on going. Earned media, one thing I'll say about this, it's all sort of a sweat equity program in the sense that we've got incredible staff that work very hard with travel writers to pitch stories. And then those stories end up in National Geographic or the New York Times, and we can have that editorial content which in a lot of ways is more impactful than the advertising or even advertorial content. If you all have stories about your properties, please come and talk to me. I think there's opportunities always through earned media channels and through our New Mexico Magazine to make sure we're telling those stories. And speaking of New Mexico Magazine, very proud this year, for last year, New Mexico Magazine was voted the best magazine, the magazine of the year in 2024. So this is a huge accomplishment in the sense that this is the oldest state-run publication in the country. It's the first time, my understanding, that we'd won this award. And so even with the challenges in magazines and sort of that market, we continue to put out an incredible product, and we use it really as a strong advertising opportunity. Many of you probably see and have distributed the adventure guides. Those are produced as a joint effort between the magazine and the tourism department. Again, if you have stories, let's certainly talk. New Mexico True Certified. So if you have, this is for vendors who produce products that are grown here, made here, sourced here. If they can meet those criteria, they can be certified New Mexico True. That opens the door to a lot of opportunities for additional sales through free activations. For example, we have gift guides in New Mexico Magazine, which feature these vendors. We've had some really interesting conversations with Sunport and other opportunities. How do we provide just more of an ability for our artists and artisans and businesses to sell New Mexico products? So it's not just about sort of getting that new money in and sort of that export value of tourism. It's also how do we keep that money in New Mexico, and I think this is an opportunity to do that. But then additionally, in terms of that new money, we have folks that travel, they really like what they've seen. This provides another opportunity for them to sort of extend that trip in that way. So excited about that program. Switching to the other side of the development piece, some of the programs, we'll talk about our events program, the TEGS program, our Destination Forward program, which is a new infrastructure support program, and then our New Mexico Clean and Beautiful. So our tourism event growth and sustainability program, we call it TEGS for short, obvious reasons why. We're 3 years in to this program, and I've just been very excited to see the growth. After the pandemic, I think, in terms of a lot of our events, having real issues cash flow wise, having real issues getting folks back into the fold. My predecessor, Jen Schreier, had made the decision that, we really need to invest in this. And so we created this program. And since we have created this program, we've expanded it. So this year, we're actually supporting 38 events around the state at over $500,000 essentially. This is through sponsorships, this is through cooperative advertising, and through some micro grants and technical assistance. We see these events, whether it's a big event like Balloon Fiesta or an event like the Deming Duck Races, we see these events as being drivers of travel that provide a reason to extend trips or a reason to make them. And so we're really leaning in on this program. So if you do know of any event organizers that could be interested in this program, please come and talk to me so we can connect you. So I mentioned about, we make this promise about New Mexico. We have to deliver on that promise. And so I think one thing that's been a challenge is how do we get capital dollars? How do we get investments into the actual built environment to support tourism and to that regard, to support the quality of life for New Mexicans, because as I think those are two sides of the same coin. And this Destination Forward program, I think, is going to be really impactful with that. This year, we're funding over $2 million, 12 projects. Look at these as anything from rehabilitations of historic theaters, rodeo grounds, outdoor recreation infrastructure, public art, anything that really instills this pride of place that is also a way to just improve the product of New Mexico. I have had some conversations too with the Department of Finance and Administration and others, and I think one of the really important pieces of this program and the opportunity is that the capital outlay system as it currently works is broken in a lot of ways. And what happens is someone says, I want to do this event center, and I want planning, design, engineering, construction dollars for this. And then they go and they get that money, and then they do their planning and design, and then it's way more money than they ever thought it was going to cost to do, and so they have to go back and then it's difficult for them to then get capital outlay again. We really want to leverage this as a tool if there are planning, design, and feasibility studies that need to be done in order to make a project shovel-ready for the legislature, to leverage this program. Because then they can take those plans that are done through this program and go to the legislature and actually ask for construction money for capital outlay and not have to go through that sort of death spiral that they're in now. So I think that excited to see this program grow, and I'm excited to see how it can be, I think, leveraged with some of the things that Albuquerque has done with their district, and the idea that how do we leverage investments in downtown and investments that could be made in Albuquerque. How do we leverage these funds to support some of those developments as well? Clean and Beautiful, want to give a shout out to this. The governor right now is very, very big on cleaning up New Mexico. Many have seen the Breaking Bad Habits campaign that we were involved with, and we're going to be continuing. But this Clean and Beautiful program is something under the department that about $1 million this year going to 67 communities to clean up, to support youth groups in cleaning up and instill that pride, to build the capacity of local governments to clean up their cities. And so look at this Clean and Beautiful program, when you're talking to your city leaders, and if you have ideas for projects, let them know about this Clean and Beautiful program and maybe opportunities to get certain parks or certain parts of the city cleaned up. So to speak to some new initiatives we got going on, first I want to speak to the Route 66 Centennial. I had mentioned some of the work that we're going to be doing on an advertising standpoint with Brand USA in the German and UK markets, but additionally we are granting out dollars this year. We received $2.5 million total from the legislature. We split that essentially. Half of it went to that marketing and the other half went to these activations. So we're actually going to be doing marketing and promotion work with partners along the Route 66 corridor, Albuquerque certainly being one of them, so that we can do productions and we can get the content and the assets built up, so then this year into next year we can really start to advertise and put working media dollars behind those. So working with Albuquerque and other communities on that. Infrastructure, we are funding some infrastructure projects. A lot of them are sort of, can be completed quickly. We're talking signage, we're talking lighting, some public art projects, just things that we can sort of get the Centennial brand around and start to clean up in preparation. Special events we're supporting. I know we're supporting a Summerfest in Albuquerque through a sponsorship, but we're really trying to use the events that we have now as marketing opportunities for this 66th Centennial. The hope is, and I'll speak to this as far as the session goes, is to continue that $2.5 million investment into the next year so that we can put those dollars behind those productions that we've done this year and start to put those ads in front of consumers. I want to mention the Marketing Center of Excellence. This is something that was established by law that went into effect this year. This is sort of the burden of competence when it comes to a department. We've done a really good job with New Mexico True, so the legislature looked at us and said, hey, you guys are doing this, why don't you do it for all state government? No big deal. And so we are working on how to thread that needle. We do have a staff person now managing that, but we are going to be, and I want to be clear about this, we're not going to have New Mexico True advertising supporting, vaccination clinics or childcare or anything like that. Like it's a leisure travel brand, and that is what we are going to keep it at. But we will be working within the department to support state agencies as they develop some of their campaigns. To speak to the budget on that, because it has a little bit of a implication in the session. I'll also mention the Breaking Bad Habits campaign. The website that was produced was a result of the Marketing Center of Excellence. I'm really excited about this because there are a lot of silos in government. We have an environment department, a tourism department, a transportation department. They're all responsible for cleaning stuff up, but they all do it their own way. This is sort of forcing us to all work together to figure out what metrics we want to track, to figure out how we want this to look, and to coordinate together. So, I think it's an opportunity for good government, but it is somewhat overwhelming. And then travel trade. So I kind of want to close on this as far as new programs and then get into session. We're running short on time. So travel trade, this is an important B2B mechanism to drive tourism. So right now we're B2C, we're business, we're looking at consumers, we're just putting advertising in a large way in front of leisure travelers. But there are opportunities with especially the Route 66 Centennial and beyond to start to really engage with the tour operators and the travel buyers on the international side. So that when they're packaging their Southwest tours, New Mexico has a place. And I think it's something that we hadn't really had a place in before, and now we really have an opportunity. So what I would encourage you is, if you do have, with your properties, if you are interested, in making sure that you're part of the discussions when we're meeting with travel buyers and tour operators and getting appointments, and you can be part of our travel trade strategy, please come talk to me. We want to make sure that we are telling these buyers everything that's great to do in Albuquerque, so that when they're writing their itineraries, Albuquerque has a spot. So excited for travel trade. How this relates to our budget, I want to separate it into two pieces. So first, our base budget. So 200 category. So salaries, essentially salaries. Our executive recommendation has us growing at 790.8 thousand. This is the result of we've had significant growth in terms of programs, and we really haven't grown in terms of our capacity. We're looking for an additional staff within our tourism development division and an additional staff within our administrative services division. Additionally, $200,000 for the New Mexico Bowl. Every year there is this fight in special appropriations to try to get money for this. One year it didn't happen, and it really put us in a bad spot. And so I think the thought is, this happens every year. It's important to us. It's important to New Mexico. Let's put the foundational money to not put that event ever in peril, and just make it recurring. On the non-recurring side, this is where some of those bigger dollars are going to come in. We're requesting $16 million in national advertising, but that will also support the international marketing for Route 66. Destination Forward, so that's that infrastructure program. We're requesting $1.9 million. That Marketing Center of Excellence Bureau, we're requesting $2 million. And that litter and beautification to keep that Breaking Bad Habits campaign going, we're requesting $2 million. And then we have a long-standing partnership with Special Olympics. We're requesting the $300,000 to continue that. Where are we with respect to this budget? So the Legislative Finance Committee released their budget yesterday, and just in large numbers, we're about $4.6 million off. So between the executive recommendation, which we're fighting for, and the Legislative Finance Committee recommendation, we're about $4.6 million. And where that is really being impacted is Marketing Center of Excellence primarily is not funded right now. And so we need to make sure that we have funding for that program so that it can be successful and it's not pulling resources from our national and international marketing and efforts. I would say within that 4, there's some other things we can have a conversation in the 4.6, but that's our gap. And so as we're going into the session, that's what we're going to be fighting for. So to close here, I would really, I know it's coming up here, first day, Tourism Day at the Capitol. If you can break away, if you can have an opportunity, love to see you there. I think this is just going to be a fun opportunity to talk to lawmakers, see what we're doing, visit with other folks in the industry. But additionally, don't have this on the slide, but February 10th and February 11th, we will have our hearings for the Senate, or for the House Appropriations, and then the Senate Finance Committee. There will be in the afternoons. And so I can provide that information to Carl and to this group so that you have that. It's always great to see a friendly face when you're in the committee rooms. So those will be the dates that will be in front of the legislature trying to make up, again, that about $4.6 million. So with that, I really am appreciative for this industry, the folks in the room that I do have just incredible relationships with, and then the folks that I don't know, please come and talk to me. We have so many exciting things happening that we've done this past year, that we plan to do in the next year. We have great partnerships, and I think we're primed to be successful both domestically and now internationally. So with that, I think Jason's going to go, and then we're going to make sure that we have time for questions that we can speak to. So thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Lansing. So as I said earlier, my name's Jason Weeks. I'm the lobbyist for the New Mexico Hospitality Association, also the Hospital Association too. It's a little confusing for me sometimes with the two acronyms being totally the same. Kathy Comal is the CEO and president of the association. She's been there, how many years now, Kathy? I think it's been like 7? Yeah. So Kathy has been there through almost my entire tenure. I started off when Jen Schreier was there, and then she left and then came back to the state to be the Secretary of Tourism, which Lansing is currently filling that charge. So quickly, I just wanted to give a quick overview, not really on the budget specifically, but on policy initiatives that will likely face this upcoming session that could impact this industry and some of the other industries that affect your industry, right? Travel and tourism is impacted by just about every type of travel, including business travel. So if New Mexico is not a favorable place to do business, then you all will suffer because not as many people are going to be here. So there's some obvious bills to kind of go over. PFMLA, paid family medical leave, is obviously one that this industry has long opposed. Pretty much all my clients oppose that bill. It's coming back, I think, for the 4th time. So that's one that we will see. And before I get into that additional bills, this bill is worth mentioning specifically because it actually motivated a political change or structural change in the organization of the legislature from a political standpoint. After last year's vote, there were 4 moderates that voted against it. And out of those 4 moderates, the progressives and the proponents of paid family medical leave went after, well, there were a lot of moderates that voted against it, but they went after 4 of them. You need Democratic votes to beat any bill back in both chambers because we have near supermajorities for Democrats in both the House and the Senate. So only just slightly over 1/3 of each chamber is Republican. So Democrats really run the show. We do not really have divided government here. There's not one statewide position that's held by a Republican. So this is a deep, deep, deep blue state. So out of those 4 individuals that got targeted, 3 of them lost. We lost another moderate who had voted against it through retirement. So when we were sitting around last year after the session warning everybody that we would lose moderates unless they were heavily supported during the political cycle, and we really needed to raise a bunch of money for these moderates because they were going to come under fire, we were right. They did, and they lost. So now we're 4 votes short. Making up those 4 votes is going to be tough. It's not going to be impossible. The thing about paid family medical leave is that every year I think it's going to pass, and every year when it is going to pass and there are some reasonable voices standing between it and passage, those reasonable voices become brave and stand up and oppose it. But we're running out of brave voices. We're running out of moderates. I mean, there's not a lot of them left. This thing will sail through the Senate. Really, the place that we're going to beat it back is in the House. So getting into that, there was a pretty significant shift in the political structure of the House because we lost those 4 moderates. Representative Alicia Alcon just recently passed away. He stepped down just before he passed, and they are looking to appoint his replacement. So we may end up getting a moderate in that seat, which then leaves us 3 short. There's a group of folks that are working on some compromises relative to that bill. We'll see what comes out of it. At least 1 or 2 of the members that are currently voicing concern and potential opposition likely will end up supporting it. It's a very hard bill if you're a Democrat in particularly a progressive area to support. So that is a battle that we will continue to fight, and I would encourage you all to continue to get involved. If you don't know how to get involved, call Kathy. Kathy can tell you where to go, when to go, and what to say. Engagement with individual legislators that are your legislators actually does impact the outcome, so you should do that. I'm not going to beat this thing back. Kathy's not going to beat it back. You all will be critical to that because you telling your stories is really important. So now I'm going to get off the soapbox and topic of PFMLA. Happy to answer questions about it. Quickly, though, there are a lot of other bills that are problematic. We'll see an AI bill that seeks to create some pretty stringent regulations regarding AI. How many businesses here, raise your hands, how many of you all use AI in your businesses or have a partner that uses AI? Okay. So basically you would be told, yeah, you can't use AI in that form. New Mexico is so special that we're going to regulate AI in a very unique way that will mean that the national providers that you use or tools that you use, you can't use them unless they conform to a specific protocol. So that is House Bill 60. That's a really troublesome bill that's already been introduced. We've got a site readiness bill that actually is beneficial. The governor's office is pushing that forward. Site readiness seeks to attract investment in the state by creating streamlined regulatory and local protocol for development of large projects. That one hasn't been introduced yet, but we will see that one. Another potentially positive bill is affordable housing initiatives. I think this industry always cares about. Having places that your employees can purchase and live in is obviously very important. We will see a hotel renovation tax credit. We've introduced it before. We've had some good hearings. We haven't been able to get it included in the budget thus far, but we will continue to work on that issue. And that's kind of what crime initiatives. We don't know what the crime package is going to look like yet. The governor has obviously been advocating hard for her crime package. The Senate has come up with its own crime package, as has the House. We don't really know the fine details of those measures yet. Those are all going to sort of be defined as we work through the session. I don't expect any of the measures to be a silver bullet. I think investing in behavioral health resources, trying to address homelessness, and trying to tamp out violent crime and reduce recidivism for those who have already committed a crime is really important. I think those should be the focus. We'll see what we get. I know crime is a major concern for probably all of you in this room. Not only does it dissuade people from coming to New Mexico, but you have to deal with individual acts of criminal activity within your businesses at points. So then going to shift quickly to some other potentially negative bills that we will see. A Green Amendment, which is an environmental-based bill. It's really anti-development. It really goes super far in terms of saying development and other economic activity cannot happen if it infringes on an individual's right to enjoy their physical environment. It's a constitutional change. It is a bad bill for industry across the board, and it's been broadly opposed by basically every business in the state of New Mexico. We'll see maybe a minimum wage bill. We will see a bill to regulate mergers and acquisitions for healthcare entities, which could be problematic. We will see an age-appropriate internet design bill or age gating of websites. We've opposed this in the past because in order to age gate, you have to verify somebody is under or over 18. It creates a burden for all of your outward-facing websites that we think is unreasonable, but we'll likely see that bill again. There was a bill to try to change lodger's tax. Lansing and I have already worked on that one. We think we've beaten that one back. I don't think we'll see it again, but it was not a positive bill. I don't think it will come up. And then getting into the budget, there's going to be roughly $800 million. I think there's not a huge gap between the executive and legislative. Anything that we can do to help Lansing close that $4+ million gap, we need to do. That money directly benefits this industry, and that Marketing Center of Excellence is such an untapped point of potential for the state. And so supporting that will be really, really key. We may see GROW money again. I don't know if you all are familiar with it, but it's programmatic funding that's discretionary money that the legislature gets. It may come back, it may not come back, and then capital outlay, which, quite frankly, some capital outlay projects do benefit tourism and travel industry because it improves the infrastructure that the community has to offer a good experience to both their citizens and folks who are traveling in. And then I think that we'll see roughly about 350, 400 million in new money for roads. So that's kind of the quick rundown of the policy issues that we're going to be facing. I think Lansing we're happy to answer any additional questions. I know my presentation wasn't as pretty as Lansing's. I am not great with slideshows. But yeah, I think we're open for whatever questions you might want to ask. So feel free.
You mentioned Europe as part of your Route 66 marketing efforts. Are you also looking at Canada and Mexico?
Thank you so much for that question. We are looking at it. I think as far as this run, we're pretty much under contract for those two markets. But working with Brand USA, they have those relationships and connections with those markets, and we are really looking at that. I think the challenge is with the short time frame and the amount of money we have, not putting the dollars, not spreading them out too thin so that they don't make as big of an impact, but they are on the radar. And I think that there's, especially when you look at the Mexican market, there's big opportunities there. So we're looking into it.
Jason, you mentioned some crime bills that are out there from the governor and some others. Kind of from your standpoint, what type of efforts can we? Well, first, how can we help as an industry, but also what kind of stuff specifically do you think would benefit us from the different bills that are out there?
Sure, yeah, and thanks for that question. It's complicated, and to be frank, it's an issue that I know probably more than I care to know about. I did do criminal defense work for about 10 years, so I'm pretty well versed in the public policy surrounding it. I think there's a problem, right? Like, we can pass and we can have the best laws in the nation, and we can have the most, stringent criminal code in the world and really hammer people who commit offenses. That is not going to prevent people from committing offenses. I had no client ever say, I really considered the penalties associated with this offense before I decided to break the law. It's just not where their head's at when they're doing what they're doing. I think the reality is we have to focus on some of the core inputs. Certainly we have to be tough on crime. We have to criminalize behavior that is problematic. I think that there are two classes of crimes. There are crimes that really scare us and crimes that really annoy us. I think that the crimes that really scare us, we need to just put people, in jail or prison for long periods of time. There are some bills that seek to do that. We have some issues with our second-degree murder statute that need to be corrected. I think we have some issues with some of our child abuse statutes that need to be corrected. The crimes that really annoy us, I guess I can guess that vagrancy and homelessness and vandalism and public intoxication are probably the offenses that impact this industry and your businesses the most. I'm seeing a lot of nodding heads. So we need to figure out how to address those issues. The problem is that's complicated, right? You can't criminalize homelessness directly, and you can't criminalize having a behavioral health issue. You can say, okay, people who are experiencing homelessness and people who have behavioral health issues, and basically anybody who is homeless has a behavioral health issue, honestly. They're not homeless because they're wanting to be, they're homeless because they're in crisis. And so you have to figure out how to create a structure that gets them resources to make it so that they can access substance abuse treatment, other types of counseling, but also dissuades them from wanting to be on a corner, right? So you can criminalize it to a degree by saying, all right, you can't stand on that corner. The governor tried that a little bit, right? The legislature rejected that option and said, well, you're criminalizing panhandling, which is trying to get at homelessness, which doesn't really address the problem. I know this is sort of a wide-ranging answer, but it's a complicated answer to a simple question. And what we really need to do is reevaluate how we interact with the population that's committing the offenses, how we spend money trying to improve their situation. We spend tons, and the population that we're really looking at is like 5,000 to 10,000 people. We spend tons of money on that. So we really need to rethink what we're doing relative to addressing the core causes of the behavior, as opposed to saying, let's just criminalize homelessness, let's criminalize panhandling. Certainly some of that may help, but we need to actually then also reevaluate how we're handling that, but get law enforcement, the judiciary, and others to do their jobs. You know? Like, we can invest so much money in this stuff, but we can't make, the legislature cannot legislate, do your job. And so, quite frankly, APD needs to have probably 300 more officers on the street. They need to be better trained, better resourced. The judiciary has flipped, they've moved it a little bit. I think they've realized, like, a lot of what they were doing in terms of catch and release, the community did not like. I speak from an intimate perspective on this because my wife is a judge. And she has said, you know, we see it, we're gonna detain more people, things are getting more violent in the community. I wanna cut myself off because I could go on this issue. I think that if you all have ideas and you're experiencing crime in your businesses, be very specific about the crime, be very specific about when and how it's impacting your businesses, and go talk to your elected officials about it. And sit down with them and say, we have to solve this problem. Not just crime generally, that's too vague. We have to solve this problem. Any other questions? Sorry, I may have talked us out with that one. Apologize. All right, Tanya.
I'm gonna ask a question about, and this is maybe not for this session, but thinking about selfishly destination master plan that was done in Albuquerque. There's a lot of capital outlay money that goes that is not expended. You talked about the challenge that the Destination Forward sort of closes that gap. You could start with a project, get the initial funding, and then take it for capital outlay. Some of those projects in Albuquerque, the Destination Forward is a nice first step.
Yeah.
But some of the projects we'd like to do are massive in terms of investment. Is there something that we can work towards with either grow funds or in terms of supporting that Destination Forward, so that we could really look at some larger projects in the future?
Thank you, Tanya. I mean, what I would say is we need advocates that just appreciate how important, the built environment is, and having amenities and attractions that are of quality, and really voicing that to the legislature. I think, typically when you're talking about capital outlay, I think folks are looking at water and wastewater treatment plants and schools and hospitals, and obviously all incredibly important. But if we're gonna grow, we need to also focus on these projects. Now, we don't have the budget right now within Destination Forward to do anything huge, but we do have the budget to do the planning and design for something. I think that, ultimately, if we could get to a point, my dream would be that we had, $5 million or $10 million or something that was within a fund that we could, on an application basis, fund. But I think where we're at now, we just need to really drive that message that, if we want to have these places where people want to be and they want to go and recreate and have fun, we got to invest in that. And that is economic development into the future. And I think that's just something that hasn't really been voiced. So that's what I would say. Just keep it out there as being important. Use Destination Forward as an opportunity to get some of those bigger dollars as we try to get more capacity within our fund.
The way that capital outlay has been utilized is essentially, one, as a way for communities and local governmental entities to spend money on infrastructure. But there's there are a number of large projects that require cobbling together multiple years of allotments of capital outlay before you have sufficient funds to actually complete the project. And so a lot of that money is just sitting there waiting to be spent. I'd say that the number of unspent, non-encumbered, like we're being, negligent, is probably closer to 3 billion. Still a huge number, right? And I think Senator Munoz, who's the chair of the Senate Finance Committee, is going to try to pass some policy reforms on capital outlay this year that say we're only going to reauthorize funds from the original year, like 3 years into the future, so that you can't just reauthorize in perpetuity. You actually have to start spending the money. We're also going to likely see some changes or some effort to try to change what is called the anti-donation clause. And for folks that aren't familiar with the anti-donation clause, it is a fairly antiquated mechanism in our state constitution from a time that is long past, that prevents state government from giving money to the private sector directly for any physical infrastructure projects. You use local governments to pass through that money, but then the local government actually owns the infrastructure or the physical property. That is really problematic because it means that it's so diffuse. There's so many of these little projects. Every nonprofit in the world goes out and tries to get capital outlay funding, which impacts what you guys are talking about, which is broader funding to complete large projects that actually move the needle in terms of having better resources in the community. So I think there are some other initiatives that sort of dance around what you're talking about, Tanya, that maybe help resolve the relevant issue a little bit. Cool. All right. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.